Hello and welcome to the introduction and overview for the Spring 2022 NSF Grants Conference. My name is Caitlyn Fife. I'm the Budget Director in the Office of Budget Finance and Awards Management. Today, we're here to talk about several topics that I have listed on this slide. And I hope that you leave with a better sense of who NSF is as an organization. And I want to encourage you to ask as many questions as you'd like to the folks who are with you in the virtual grants conference, whether it be NSF staff, project officers, or other folks from BFA. We want to make sure that you get out of this conference what you're hoping to. I'm going to start by describing NSF's mission and vision. As an agency, our mission, according to our statutory NSF Organic Act, is to promote the progress of science, to advance the national health, prosperity, and welfare, and to secure the national defense. And we do that by supporting investments across a whole range of science and engineering areas. NSF accomplishes this mission through its role to encourage and develop a national policy for the promotion of basic research and education in math, physical, biological, engineering, and other sciences. We initiate and support basic scientific research. And we evaluate the science research program undertaken by agencies of the federal government. NSF in a nutshell. First, it's important to know that we are an independent agency. What does that mean? It means that NSF falls outside of the various cabinet agencies. NSF supports fundamental basic research and education in all non-medical fields of science and engineering. Most of you know us as issuing grants to the outside community. This is where the majority of our funds go. We have a very low overhead. Over about 93% of our funds go out the door to awardees to do the science. This is enabled by a variety of automated systems that many of you interact with and are familiar with, such as NSF Fastlane, research.gov, and our virtual panel capabilities. NSF has a discipline-based organizational structure, not unlike colleges and universities. We also have several mechanisms that facilitate cross-disciplinary research and collaboration. The NSF Big Ideas are one example of this. It's also important to note that NSF uses rotators, in particularly a mechanism that we refer to as IPAs. This is a special hiring authority that allows us to bring in people from the community on a temporary basis. It's important because this keeps NSF connected to the communities we serve. It also provides a developmental opportunity for people in the community who want to learn more about NSF from the inside. Another important characteristic that makes NSF different is our governance structure. We have the National Science Board, and this is 24 members that are appointed by the director who provide guidance and advice to NSF. It's important to know our director is also a member of the National Science Board. Turning to a little bit of history, Vannevar Bush is the spiritual father of NSF and federal funding of basic research. He issued a report in 1945 called Science, the Endless Frontier, which spurred the creation of a system of public support for university research that endures to this day. Inspired by advances in science and technology that occurred as a result of World War II, the NSF was established by Congress in the National Science Foundation Act of 1950, over 7 decades ago. On this slide, you see a representation of the 8 directorates that support science and engineering research and education at NSF. As I mentioned previously, we're organized, our organization is set up along the discipline lines similar to colleges and universities. You see those reflected here. It's important to note, though, what's really interesting at NSF is what happens in between these boxes, the kind of cross-disciplinary work and partnerships that happen on the daily basis. Beyond those 8 organizations that I have reflected here, we also have some coordination offices like the International Office of Science and Engineering, which coordinates our international engagements and collaboration. We also have an Office of Integrative Activities that manages large cross-directorate and agency-wide programs such as the EPSCoR program. Not shown on this slide are our mission support offices of Office of Budget, Finance, and Award Management, and the Office of Information and Resource Management, both of whom ensure that the agency's operations are running smoothly. Now, as the budget director, one of the ways that I like to understand what NSF is doing is by looking at the numbers. And so this slide, I'm going to provide quite a few numbers that help me get a sense of what NSF does. So 8.8 billion, that's our FY 2022 enacted budget level and the budget that we're currently executing. 93%, I already told you, is the amount of funding that goes out the door to fund research and education and related activities. In FY 2021, we supported about 2,000 institutions and over 300,000 people. 43,000 proposals is what we received last year and is in line with what we've received in recent years. Of those, about 11,000 are selected for funding. This means that about 30,000 proposals each year, many of them are passed over due to a lack of funding rather than failing to meet our standards. Awards are determined, the awards that we do fund are determined through a merit review process, which is regarded throughout the world as the unequaled standard for scientific review. It relies on the expertise of accomplished scientists to ensure that all NSF projects are of the highest quality and have the potential to advance the frontiers of knowledge and transform our world. NSF program reviews have always focused on intellectual merit. This is quite a high bar and one that we continue to, that we are very serious about in our review of proposals. We must be doing something right because at last count, NSF supported researchers had received 253 Nobel Prizes. Now, although NSF invested in all of these laureates long before they were recognized by the Nobel communities, it's important to note the role that we played and that basic research played in these achievements. Now, this slide also shows NSF support of academic basic research. And this is to give you a sense of taking a look at basic research conducted at academic institutions using federal research dollars. The NSF is a major funding source for this academic basic research. Many other government organizations work to ensure that the US leads in research and innovation, and we partner with many of them. Yet, many of these other agencies provide mission-directed research funding in fields such as healthcare and defense. NSF, on the other hand, has a broad mission that makes it uniquely poised to support all fundamental research, regardless of its field of study. You can see on this graph how NSF is a critical funder in many of the major universities in these fields, ensuring that vital research areas contribute to increasing the nation's leadership. The budget. Just in this March, NSF, as part of the President's FY 2023 budget request to Congress, the NSF requested a historic budget of $10.5 billion. The budget request is the most detailed document that supports the President's budget request, and it goes to Congress as our congressional justification. This document is over 600 pages and can be found on our website. The link is at the end of my presentation, and it allows the public to drill into the details for any discipline or program or directorate or division at NSF. So if you're looking for some detailed information, this is the place to go. This slide provides an overview of how that $10.5 billion breaks down across the NSF appropriations. NSF has 6 appropriations accounts listed on this slide with the most recent year's information. Fiscal 2021, what Congress provided us in the year that we just completed. Fiscal 2022, which is the budget that the agency is currently executing. And fiscal 2023, which is that policy proposal that was provided to Congress in March. The first line is research and related activities. And this is where many of those 8 disciplines that I talked to you about on several slides prior are funded. And they fund many of the cooperative agreements and grants that are going out to our communities. The second line, STEM education research, or EDU, this is formerly Education and Human Resources, but we proposed a renaming of that organization in fiscal 2023 to better reflect the work that that organization does. And they also fund grants and cooperative agreements, as well as fellowships, and many of our training programs reside in that organization and budget account. Major research, equipment, and facilities construction is where construction activities for things like telescopes and research ships and gravitational wave detectors, this is where those construction funds are provided. Then agency operations and awards management is what funds all NSF staff salaries, rent, and other operational costs that ensure that our headquarters in Alexandria, Virginia is running smoothly. And then finally, the last 2 appropriations accounts, Office of the Inspector General and Office of the National Science Board, fund those named offices. You can see, as you look across the various columns, you can see where the large increases would be provided in the event that NSF were to be successful in achieving that $10.5 billion budget in fiscal 2023. So what happens next? Well, right now we're waiting. Our fiscal 2023 will begin on October 1st, 2022. And we hope that an accompanying appropriation would come soon after. However, as you'll see in the next slide, it is often the case that we start our fiscal years without full certainty on what our funding levels will be for that year. We will be watching Congress this summer as they work through various authorization bills, as well as the appropriations for fiscal 2023, either of which may be providing increased funding for NSF. One such piece of legislation is NSF of the Future Act, which reauthorizes NSF through 2026. And you can see that at this link, you could learn more. What this slide shows is what I just had referred to. Since in the last 30 years, since 1992, we have not started our fiscal year with a full year appropriation, except for in 2 years. And most recently, we were under, in fiscal 2022, we were under a continuing resolution for 164 days. What this means is that we worked through about half of the fiscal year, operating at our prior year's funding level. NSF did receive an increase. So what that means is we have a lot of work to do between now and the end of the fiscal year to get those funds issued and awarded. And then you'll see this is, as I said, this is pretty commonplace. Since 1992, we've been starting on average the first quarter of the year without certainty on what a full year appropriation could be. So now that we've talked about all the funding, what are the chances of getting funded? Well, on this slide, I've provided the last 5 years of the number of proposals that we've received and those that we were able to fund. You can see that it's ranged between 23 and 28%. In fiscal 2021, we were right in the middle at 26%. There are many factors that contribute to this. What I'm showing you here is pretty simple math. And this success rate varies significantly across NSF by directorate and by program, right? But again, it does drive home kind of the impact of what I had stated earlier, that NSF is only able to fund about a quarter of those proposals that we receive, and that many of those, it's not due to them lacking the intellectual merit, but that we do have limited funding to support the good ideas coming to the agency. So for the last several slides, I've been talking mostly about what happens on an annual basis, but you all know that NSF is actually managing an award portfolio that spans multiple years. And what that translates to is a portfolio that's about $28 billion in total award funding, 54,000 active awards, and over 3,000 awardees. This is the universe of awards that we are servicing, and many of the people who you'll be meeting with throughout the grants conference, this is what they are working on. In this blue box, it shows the activities that NSF is engaged in with our grantees throughout the award life cycle. So we are moving these awards through the pre-award reviews all the way through audit resolution. And so if you have questions, the chances are there's going on any of these various phases, chances are there are people here who can help answer those questions for you. And as I mentioned before, I have included some links here in my presentation if you would like to learn even more about NSF, who we are, and the policy documents that inform our work. So we have the PAPG, the budget documents. NSF just issued a new strategic plan that covers the next 5 years through 2026. And we also, on an annual basis, provide the merit review report for the NSB that is able to get into many, many levels of detail about the work and what's happening in the science and engineering enterprise. And so I encourage you to take a look at any of these documents if you would like to learn more about who NSF is and the work that we do. And then finally, I will leave you with, again, if you're looking for more information, ask early and ask often throughout this conference, but also there's a couple places here where you might be able to go to find folks to ask those questions. Thank you again for your time, and I really hope you enjoy the conference. Thanks, everyone.